Summit. Joining me now is Tennessee Senator Bill Hagerty, a member of the Senate Banking, Housing, Foreign Relations, Appropriations, and Rules Committees. Senator, great to see you, as always. Thank you so much for being here. Give us your take on the BRICS Summit and the impact on the dollar.
Thank you, Maria, for having me, as always. And I just have to say this. Were it not for the tremendous leadership void that exists today because of America's exit from the international stage, we wouldn't be seeing this happen. And under President Trump, this would have never happened. They've expanded BRICS now to 32 nations, as you've said. This is all about Vladimir Putin trying to find a way to get around the type of sanctions regime that we will come back and put in place once President Trump is back in office. Interestingly, I noticed that the UN Secretary General Guterres is going to be there in Russia for this event. You know, were this event held anywhere else, Guterres, I think, would be obligated to enforce the arrest warrant that his own international criminal court has put out for Putin. It's just shocking to me that these nations would step up and participate in this, and that Guterres himself would be involved in a situation where Iran is actually going to be brought into this group. It's amazing. The only common bond, it seems, is that America's not part of it, and they want to demonstrate their pushback. And the fact that the UN is engaged in this as well, really quite shocking and disturbing to me, as it should be to all of us.
Well, I mean, isn't it also China backing Iran? Yeah. I mean, China is buying oil from Iran. They are complicit. How do you expect the Kamala Harris potential administration to handle foreign policy and have to handle these autocrats and you know, communists, from the Chinese Communist Party to Russia and Vladimir Putin?
Well, you mentioned China. That is another common bond here. China's economic ties and leverage over these countries with the Bricks and Road Initiative, and the fact that they're buying oil from Iran and from Russia. That is another common bond that these guys share. But if you think about how the Harris administration would respond, look no further than what they did with the spy balloon that they allowed to fly over the entirety of the United States of America.
Yeah.
And then send 4 cabinet members over to kowtow just to beg them to come to San Francisco for a meeting. I'm very concerned. Americans should be deeply concerned what would happen, and should Kamala Harris be put in a position to stand up to Xi. I've been with President Trump when he's met with Xi. Xi respects Trump. President Trump will bring respect and order back to these types of relationships. I cannot imagine how Kamala Harris would stand up to that type of pressure.
Look, I want to get your take on a former Obama Attorney General. Loretta Lynch is actually suing the Pentagon on behalf of a Chinese military company. This is just incredible to me. She's representing the drone company DJI in its lawsuit against the Pentagon. This suit challenges the Department of Defense's decision to designate DJI as a Chinese military company, which imposes severe restrictions. New York Congresswoman Elise Stefanik is accusing Lynch of turning her back on her nation and selling out to China. Stefanik also says DJI's lawsuit is an attempt to distract from the Uyghur slave labor concern, Senator. I mean, this is pretty incredible. You have a former Attorney General of the Obama administration leaving office and then going and making money working for the Chinese Communist Party, Senator. I mean, and not only that, but I have a major problem with the U.S. Defense Department, or the Pentagon, the U.S. in general, buying drones from a Chinese drone maker, DJI.
Yeah, this is exactly why President Trump has said we must drain the swamp. This is just another example of the revolving door. And the fact is that the first time this DJI was cited was back in 2017 when President Trump was in office. The Army took them down then. There's no way that Loretta Lynch would be bringing the suit under the Trump administration. But again, they're trying to squeeze everything in they can in the last days, the waning days of this administration. You've got to ask yourself, who are they working for? Because every one of the foreign policies that Biden and Harris have pursued basically make China the net winner. We've got to stop this. We need real leadership, and we need leadership in the White House, and I think it'll happen November the 5th with President Trump.
So let me just understand this. The DOD puts DJI on its Section 1260H entity list of Chinese military companies.
Yeah.
And then you have Loretta Lynch defending DJI. If we're buying drones from a Chinese company, does that mean, Senator, that everything those drones see, China can see?
Yeah, ever since 2018, that's been the case because that's what the Chinese national security law says. Chinese companies that collect data anywhere in the world need to and have to expose that data to the Chinese intelligence services when asked. So of course that's what it means. That's the vulnerability that was seen back in the Trump administration. That seems to be something that Loretta Lynch wants to undo and make these Chinese companies have access to the most sensitive data that our U.S. military would pick up. It's unconscionable that she would do this.
It's unbelievable that we are buying drones from a Chinese drone maker, and that enables China to see everything that we see on those drones. I mean,
indeed. And that the
this
top
is a
law
national
enforcement
security urgency, in my view.
Barack Obama's top law enforcement officer, the former Justice Department leader herself, the former Attorney General, is the one defending this Chinese company, trying to get him off of this list when she knows the exposure, the national security risk that would pose to America. It is just shocking.
So she's making money herself,
yes,
and putting the entire country at risk.
Yes. Back to drain the swamp. That's what we have to do, and this revolving door has to come to an end.
We're going to keep a spotlight on that story, but I got to get your take on your new stablecoin bill. You recently released draft legislation establishing a clear regulatory framework for the regulation and the supervision of a stablecoin and stablecoin users and issuers. This builds upon Congressman McHenry's Clarity for Payment Stablecoins Act. Tell us more about this and how this is going to be used in practicality.
Yeah, as you mentioned, this builds upon some excellent work that was done in the House of Representatives. I've come in and made some adjustments that I think it will make it easier to get through both bodies. The impact of this, though, actually gets back to the beginning of the story that you and I talked about. You think about the efforts that Vladimir Putin and these BRICS nations are undertaking to get around the United States as the reserve currency of the world. This will actually strengthen our posture as a reserve currency. It will increase demand not only for U.S. treasuries, but also the stable coins will increase demand for U.S. dollars on a global basis. We need the proper regulatory framework in place here in America. We need legal certainty. The Biden and Harris administration have done everything they can to destroy that sort of legal certainty. This will begin to chip away at the Democrats' war on cryptocurrency and put us back in the driver's seat when it comes to maintaining the reserve currency status that the dollar has enjoyed and should continue to enjoy.
Yeah, and do you think we would see this kind of legislation from the current Securities and Exchange Commission chairman, or is this making
Absolutely
the assumption
not.
There's a new SEC chairman?
That the assumption is very clear that this legislation will move it through, and this will be ripe for a new administration.
All right, Senator, it's great to have you this morning. We'll keep following your important work.
Thank you,
sir.
Thank you,
Senator
very much.